Guys, we've been working our asses off lately on the channel, and I just want to take some time just to enjoy some Fox body conversation. In case you don't know, I was born in 1978. I was there from the inception of the Fox body Mustang all the way through till now. So I want to talk about what it was like back in the day to have seen these cars roaming the streets. Now, I know a lot of you guys that are my age or older, you obviously remember these cars, but I want to share this experience and just talk about the Fox bodies with some of the newer guys. You know, some of the younger guys that maybe just weren't around, right? So first off, I want to say, yes, it was as freaking cool as you think it was. I promise you that. There were Fox bodies everywhere. Now, first off, I guess we need to back up because we did not call these cars Fox bodies back in the day. We called them 5.0s, GTs, notchbacks, hatchbacks, LXs, whatever. So if it was a GT, then it was either a 5.0 or a GT. I don't remember using the term notchback very much in the 90s, or at least early 90s anyway. It's pretty much just a coupe or LX. Well, you guys know I love my Fox bodies. Obviously, that's pretty much what we do on this channel. But I want to show a little bit of love to the third gen guys as well, and the Grand Nationals and the Regals and all that stuff that was running around, and even the Corvettes back in the day. Because that's pretty much what ran the street. Now, you had some old school hot rods, don't get me wrong. You had your 69 Camaros and your 65, 67 Mustangs and stuff like that. But, of course, you had hot rods running the streets rampant, right? The cool thing was, back then, you didn't have to have a highly modified car. Most people weren't running around with heads, cam, intake, supercharger, turbo, none of that. If I'm being completely honest, that really didn't become a popular thing until the mid-90s. Now, I know that there were guys out there with turbos and superchargers and built engines, but I didn't know any of them, I can tell you that. The earliest time that I can remember somebody having like a built Fox body was a guy from my hometown in Blakely, Georgia. He had an LX, had some custom paint, and this car had a cam, like gears, underdrive pulleys. I can't remember, maybe some head work done, but we're talking like 1993, somewhere in that area, like 93, 94, and like that was crazy. You just didn't see that. This, to me, in my opinion, is why the Fox body is so great today, because yeah, they didn't make a lot of horsepower, and you could take this Fox body, put it in the hands of somebody that didn't know how to drive, and it was weak sauce. I mean, it would get outrun by, hell, a lot of stuff, right? Corvettes and Grand Nationals and Camaros and Trans Ams or whatever the case may be. But if you put that car in somebody's hands that was capable of driving it, I'm telling you, those cars were pretty quick. See, here's the trick to the old 5.0s. You had to make that car run. Yeah, they had a little bit of power. They had some good torque. But you had to know how to drive it. And if you knew how to push it to its limits, it was pretty tough. But getting back to the Grand National thing, like seeing those cars, you know, on the road, you didn't see as many of them as you saw with Fox bodies and Camaros, obviously. But when you did, yes, of course, we all took notice and we're like, damn, there's a Grand National, you know. When the Grand National came out, it was a dying breed already. Honestly, I couldn't believe whenever they made the Grand National that that's what they chose to do with it. In other words, to me, it just seemed like a grandma car with a turbo, which I guess that's why a lot of people like them now. But, you know, everybody else was going to that European styling, and they didn't. You know, this was basically a freaking Buick Regal with a turbo on it. Still and yet, they were really cool cars. And I remember my mom actually wanting a Grand National. There was one on a used car lot. I think it was at the Chevrolet dealership in Dothan, Alabama. And we drove over there one day because we would always just drive around and look on the car lots and stuff. And my mom saw a Grand National sitting on the car lot. And they actually had talked about maybe working a deal out with a trade. We had our 88 GT at the time, the red and silver one. And I think they had talked about maybe working up a trade, but they just didn't want to get right on the price. But we almost had a Grand National ourselves. So the old 5.0s back in the day, man, you could hear these things from blocks away. You knew it was a 5.0. You could hear it, and it had such an iconic sound. Nothing else sounded like a 5.0 Mustang. Nothing. I don't care if it was a truck with a 302 in it, and you tried to mimic the sound with, you know, Flowmasters and tailpipes and dual exhaust and all that stuff, you still couldn't do it. There's only one car that sounds that way, and that is a Fox body Mustang. That's pretty much it. I don't know why they're that way. Maybe it has something to do with the H-pipe design, but then again, you can take that off and run true, just straight duals out, and they still sound almost identical. So back in the day, you were very likely to see a 5.0 Mustang rolling down your street, either listening to like Ghetto Boys or Whitesnake or AC/DC or Too Short or Raw Bass, or like it was crazy. I mean, these were the cool cars to have. The feeling that you got with these things they were the in car. They were in vogue, if you will. And the Camaros. Look, I love the Camaros, okay? They were equally, in a sense, as cool. One of my favorite cars that I had was an 88 Trans Am GTA. It was white with the gold BBS wheels on it. And I just love that car. I'm not going to lie to you. The Fox bodies were where it was at. The old 5.0s ruled the streets, guys. They were everywhere. Everywhere you went. Back around the mid-90s, when people really started modifying these cars, you started seeing superchargers being put on these things, heads, cam. That's whenever you knew that they were going to stick around. Obviously, I'm happy for that, but at the same time, I do love an IROC, and I do love a Trans Am. And, you know, I do like a Grand National, of course. Well, really, who doesn't like a Grand National? You got to respect those cars for what they are. They were a dying breed, and GM just threw everything at it, and one last ditch effort, and as you can see, it worked out perfect. But to be alive back then was so cool, man. You could go down, so Panama City Beach was only like an hour and a half away for us, so we would go down there on a day trip. So of course, spring break, we would go to the beach every year. These guys were doing some crazy stuff back in the day. Guys, in the mid-90s, these cars had Vortex superchargers on, and guess what? They were making big power back then. We just didn't know it. Nobody was running out dynoing these cars back in the day. We had no clue. There were plenty of cars in the mid-90s making well into the 400s to the wheels. Most people just didn't have the means to get them to a dyno, right? So I wish a lot of you had been around to witness this. It was a very, very cool time. You know, things were different back then. Our music was different. People's attitudes were different, you know. People were just a lot more outgoing. You know, the young guys had them, the older people had them. You know, people had them as family cars. I mean, it was crazy. We didn't have the big SUVs that we have today, so it was either buy a minivan or a station wagon if you wanted a family car, or if you didn't, yeah, Fox body Mustang will work too. So, and that's why I've chosen to do what I've done with this channel. I want to share those feelings with you guys. I want to show you what it feels like to have been there. Probably throw a couple old pictures up or something for you guys to show you, but just trust me, it was as cool as you thought it was back in the day with the 5.0 Mustang. You know, I see the memes all the time, you know, with the two Fox bodies rolling down the street, and, you know, title says something like, kids these days will never know what the true 5.0 was, or whatever it is. And it's true. It really is. A lot of these younger generations, or I'll say the generations that will be coming up, won't really understand that that was the original 5.0 Mustang. That was. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Enjoy your hobby. Enjoy these cars. Share it with the world. It's great. I don't care what you got. Enjoy it. And as always, thanks for watching.